Hi everybody, it's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. So, as you can see, I'm in a new location because I have moved. Today, we are here to talk about the end of the year book tag. This tag was created by Destiny Sidwell. I am not going to do every single one of the questions because some of the questions they just didn't really apply to me. But I'm going to do probably about 90% of them. But if you do want to see all the questions and then also look at them and respond to them, I will link Destiny's video down below. Here we go. So, the first question, the most disappointing book. Probably going to have like 2 or 3 books for each answer, but this one, Cleat Cute by Merrill Wilsner. I talked about this in my November wrap-up, I think. I just had really, really high expectations for this book, and it did not meet them, which was unfortunate. My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey is another one that I was really excited for. I haven't really enjoyed a Tessa Bailey book since I read It Happened One Summer, but when I saw this book was coming out, I believe it came out in January of this year, or at least that's when I read it. I was really excited. It's like a murder mystery romance, but I did not like any of the characters. I did not like the love interest. The plot was stupid. Another disappointing one. And then the final disappointing book that I read was In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. I read Beyond the Black Door by this author earlier this year. I really liked it, and then I read this one, and I just didn't like any of the characters. I didn't really understand the plot, and I really did not like... Just the whole entire thing was just a mess, and it's like blood magic and blood mages, but our main character, I don't know, sometimes it took place in like ancient Greece, but like not really, and just, I found all the characters insufferable and the plot confusing. So those are my more disappointing reads of the year. Now we're going to talk about the underdog books of the year. So I have 2 for this one. The first one was Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Myers Sane. For this book for a video, I was expecting to like it, but I wasn't expecting to genuinely love it the way that I did. This is a YA thriller about a girl who goes back to her hometown, like small town Louisiana, and is trying to figure out what happened to her best friend. This book had me by the throat. I thought it was so good, so interesting. And then the other one is actually the other A.M. Strickland book, and that is Beyond the Black Door. Again, this book, I wasn't expecting to love it, but I did really, really enjoy it. It has asexual representation, which was really good, and it was just a really fascinating fantasy novel with a really interesting concept, and I thought that was really fun. So, highly recommend both those. The overhyped books that I read this year, The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Everybody loved this book. This is a bodyguard romance, but the bodyguard is the woman, and she has to fake date the client so that his mom doesn't know that he needs a bodyguard. Again, I did not really like this book. I did not like Catherine Center's writing style, so I think that was where everything sort of fell flat for me. But yeah, I think this book is really overhyped. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I did not like Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter, but I thought I'd try her YA books. Didn't like either of them, but I think this one was one that is really, really hyped up. Everybody talks about this book and how it was such a good YA book. I didn't really care for it. I thought it was better than The Do-Over, and I liked it a little bit better than Mr. Wrong Number, I think, but way too many Taylor Swift references, way too many kind of I'm not like other girl things. It wasn't bad, but again, I also found it not very good. Oh, and then Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This book took me months to finish because it was just so slow. This is a Queen of Hearts retelling. I don't know what people see in this book. I genuinely don't. The next topic is a book that surprised you. So the first one I'm going to talk about is The Mason List by... I do not remember the author of this book. I read this back in September. This is one of the books that had been on my TBR for a really long time, so I was like, I'll read it, get it off the TBR. The thing that surprised me most about this book, I thought this was just going to be like a light Friends to Lovers YA, but this actually spanned the 2 characters the entirety of their life, and I thought that was really interesting and not what I was expecting. And I did end up enjoying this book, and I think that was also surprising. And then the other book that surprised me is The Trouble with Hating You by Sanji Patel. This one was also really, really good. I read this for a video, I think finishing books I was in the middle of, but I think what surprised me most about this book is how it dealt with certain topics and how it dealt with them in such a positive way. And I really enjoyed and really respected that. I would read the trigger warnings before you go into this book because it dealt with some heavier topics, but I think it did a really great job. And I think going into this book, I was expecting a sillier rom-com, and while it did have its fun, silly moments, I think that it dealt with a lot of more difficult topics, but in a really good way. And I think that what surprised me is that it wasn't a super cheesy rom-com, because the cover and the plot synopsis is, you know, it's about, I think he's hired to save the pharmaceutical company that she works for, and then they kind of just butt heads. But I think that this book really had a good message, and I really enjoyed it. So I think that's why it surprised me, is I just wasn't expecting it to kind of delve into certain topics as deep as it did, but I'm glad that it did, and I did enjoy it. Okay. My favorite book couples of the year. So obviously Layla and Caleb from Mixed Signals. I love this book. I think everybody needs to read Love Light Farms as soon as possible because it was so good. Lauren and Asa from Cold World with Love. With Love from Cold World, from Cold World with Love. This book had a chokehold on me. I still cannot stop thinking about it, and I don't know what the title is. I'm still so confused on the title. But Lauren and Asa, I loved that. Bree and Cell, obviously, from Bloodmarked. I don't want to talk too much about Bloodmarked because it is the second book in the Legendborn series, but Bree and Cell in this book, if you know, you know. And then Elizabeth and Nathaniel from Sorcery of Thorns. They were also really, really cute, and I loved their banter. Favorite main characters from this year. Obviously Pip from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I think the way her brain works is insanely impressive, and I love her. And I love her and Ravi as well. That could also be in the couples question, but again, I think I liked Pip better on her own. I think she was just so smart. Vin from the Mistborn series. Again, just her underdog story of becoming street urchin into just amazing, badass, powerful person. Very, very fun to read about, and I also think she's a really strong character. Jude from the Coral Prince trilogy. Jude is crazy. I love her for that. I think she was just such an unhinged character to read about, and I had so much fun. And then Sibling Dex from Psalm for the Wild Built. I really identified with their story and their sort of journey, and I really liked that book. Oh, and then new favorite authors. So Angeline Boulley wrote Firekeeper's Daughter. That book was amazing, and she only has one other book out. I can't wait to read it, but I'm hoping that there will be more from her in the future that I can read. So definitely her. Sarah Hogle as well. I read both of Sarah Hogle's regular releases. She has a Christmas novella that I'm probably not going to read, but her books are just so fun little rom-coms, and she kind of just jumped to the top of my list of favorite rom-com author. B.K. Borison is another one on here that I read. Their 3 books that they have out in the Love Light Farm series. Love them. And then the happiest book that you read this year. Love Light Farm series. Again, small town romance. Each book takes place in a different season, kind of focuses on a different couple. But these books just make me happy, laughing, giddy, just fantastic, fantastic reads. The first book is Friends to Lovers, and then we have, I think actually all 3 of them are Friends to Lovers. And then the second one is Second Chance, and then, yeah, I think most of them can just be considered Friends to Lovers, but all so fun and enjoyable to read. And then That Summer Feeling by Bridget Morrissey. I talked about this I think I read this in August, but this one was just fun. It was just about a woman finding love in an adult summer camp. So just nostalgic, silly, fun summer vibes. Nothing too deep, but I definitely had a good time when reading it, and it just made me really happy with the queer found family and the adult summer camp, and just the setting was really, really engaging. The most frustrating book you read this year. The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, which is her YA Groundhog Day, Valentine's Day book. I did not like the romance. I'll throw that out for you. I just read once that it's like, it doesn't make sense when there's a character that is stuck in the time loop and then the person that they're falling in love with isn't in the time loop, because every day is the same for them. So they're not really getting to know the character any better. So that was just silly. I just thought that it was just all annoying, and I didn't like the main character. And then The Maid by Nita Prose was another book that was really frustrating. I just think that the author, I just felt really, really bad for Molly, and it was really frustrating to see people taking advantage of her, and then the author writing about that. It was like a cozy mystery, kind of, but our main character is very easily on the autism spectrum, and I just felt like the author didn't really do her character justice, because everybody's kind of trying to underhand her and take advantage of her, and that was just kind of frustrating to see. And then the longest book I read this year was Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer Armentrout. This is the second book in the From Blood and Ash series. Did I like it? No. Well, I read it, all pages of it. It was really, really long. And then the shortest book I read, I technically read Pages to Fill, which is a Legends and Lattes prequel novella, but I don't know if I want to count that as a book. So technically the shortest book that I read was Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which I've talked about a lot and I really, really loved, and I can't wait to do the second one. Favorite covers. My favorite covers so far, I love the new Mistborn covers. I also don't buy books, so it's hard for me to be like my favorite covers, but ones that I loved seeing, new Mistborn covers, I think these are really gorgeous. And then the new Bergman Brothers covers, I think I read 3 out of the 7 this year. 7 is a lot, but I just think these new covers are so gorgeous. Those are the covers that I liked the most. Books you haven't stopped thinking about. So obviously from Cold World of Love, this book will, I think, forever have changed me for the better. Bloodmarked. I am so desperate to read the next book in the series. Thought it was coming out in 2024. It's not coming out until 2025, but so much happened in Bloodmarked. I still feel like I go back to it and I think about what happened, and I am so desperate to know how the series finishes. If you have not read the Legendborn series, please, please, please read it. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or 4 books or what's going to be happening, but I'm excited to read it regardless. But I can't stop thinking about this book. The Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I was thinking Jennifer Armentrout, but Jennifer Lynn Barnes. YA Thriller series. I'm almost done with the last book. I don't think I'm going to finish it for the end of the year, but again, this series, can't stop thinking about it, especially the direction that it's taken right now. If you've read the 3rd book, you know I'm just thinking about it all the time. And then In My Dreams Will Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I read this spring, I think. This is a dark academia thriller. I think about this book way more than I probably should. If you've read the ending, yes, I think about that a lot. And then just the plot of it was so interesting, the way it was told. It was like trying to figure out the murder of our friend that was murdered years ago. And then it's like that everybody's kind of digging stuff up and doing flashback scenes. And I just think a lot about the scenes. Flashbacks. I think about the ending a lot. I do think about this book. It definitely had an impact on me. Right. The cringiest books I read this year. I read this book called The Sky Is Yours by Chandler Klang. This was something that I picked up randomly because it was on display at my library. I picked this book up, and it's a futuristic sci-fi novel. The world is ended. I don't really remember what happened in this book, but our main character was so misogynistic, and it was just so cringy to read. Just the dialogue and the plot and the idea of it was just really not enjoyable. I'm surprised this was not the lowest rated book, actually, which we'll get to in a little bit, but it was just all so cringy. Much Ado About You by Samantha Young. This is a romance about a woman that moves to Scotland. This book was fine, but the ending was just so stupidly cringy to me that it just kind of ruined the rest of the book. Like, I remember laughing out loud at how ridiculous it was. And To Heaven to Heist by Sarah Desai, which, if you remember my end of the year TBR tag, I was really, really excited to read this book. Lo and behold, that was stupid of me to think, because it was really cringy. The dialogue was just unbearable, and I just felt myself like getting such secondhand embarrassment. Very disappointing. Okay, and then an unpopular book you loved. This one, well, I don't think it is unpopular. I think in comparison with the rest of the series, it's unpopular, and that's Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I loved this one. I thought this book was so good. I feel like a lot of people, however, did not feel that way, because I feel like this one does not get the hype compared to the first and third. So that's why I'm listing it here, because I was really going through the books that I read, and I could not think of any books that are deemed unpopular that I liked. So I'm kind of going with this one. It's a little bit of a cheater's answer, but I just don't think this book is as hyped up as the other two, and that's why I'm listing it here, because I think compared to that trilogy, it is the most unpopular book in the trilogy, which is unfortunate because it is the best book in my opinion. And then the lowest and highest rated books that I read this year. So I use Storygraph. I don't use Goodreads. Storygraph will not sort by high and lowest rating, so please appreciate that I did a lot of work trying to answer this question, because you have to click on every single book. So the lowest rated book I read was Insatiable by Daisy Buchanan. You could probably guess this. I didn't like this book. A lot of people didn't like this book. It was not a very good book. I think it had like 3.1 stars. And the highest rated book I read was Fourth Wing with like 4.54 stars. And that was funny. It was almost Home for the Wild Bill. We were so close, but it was Fourth Wing instead. Which is fair. I mean, Fourth Wing did kind of blow up. And I read it. And it was fine. Books with the most unique concept that you read this year. So obviously Gideon the Ninth, Necromancers in Space, crazy, just sci-fi fantasy. And again, this is a book that I also can't stop thinking about because the ending was insane. Just the whole thing was fantastic. Highly recommend. If you're looking for some sci-fi, it is a little bit like, a little more complex, but I think once you get into it, you'll really, really enjoy it. How You Lose the Time War. Again, this is like a sapphic love story between two people from opposing sides of a war, and they just are like sending each other letters, and that's how the story is told, which is just, again, such a unique and interesting concept, and I loved it. And then A Touch of Jen. This is a book that my friend's friend wrote, and this is a very, very weird book. And again, just a super weird book, super weird concept. Really don't even know how to explain it because it didn't really make a lot of sense. But if you're looking for something that's really, really weird and you don't care that much about plot, Touch of Jen, for sure. Books that I would reread. So, I mean, I would reread a lot of the books that I read this year, but I think the one that I would love to read and get more out of is Bet on It by Jodie Slaughter. This is a bingo romance between a woman that moves to a small town and has a bingo partner, and then she meets the bingo partner's grandson. They fall in love. This book was cute, spicy, fun. Bingo. It also dealt with a little bit of heavier topics. I believe our main character has anxiety. But overall, I really, really love this romance, and I would love to reread it and sort of maybe delve back into that world. Reading goal reflection. So my reading goal was for 100 books. As I stands right now, 2:49 on a Sunday, December 31st, I have read 195 books, which is really impressive. I was kind of hoping to get closer to 200, but since we've been moving this past week, it's just not happening. So that's fine. I was close. I did meet my goal. For 2024, I think that I could get to 200. It'll be fascinating. See if I can do it, because I definitely had some slower reading months this year. Especially February, and then December, I read like 13-ish books, when usually I've been able to read the rest of the year. I've been able to read like 18 or 19 books per month. So if I'm able to like read more in the months that I didn't read as much, I could probably get to 200, but I also don't know if I want to set 200 and then not make it and then be disappointed in myself. I don't know. We'll see. And then 2024 priorities. I've talked a little bit about this. Delving back into the Shadowhunters world by Cassandra Clare. Continuing to read Brandon Sanderson. Reading more fantasy, I think, is definitely a 2024 priority for me. Yeah, I think that's all. This is going to be a really short video, but thank you for watching. My name is Emma. Give it a comment, a like, and a subscribe. Bye.